Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, presented by Wendy's and those Saucy Nuggs. We got a saucy guest for you today. Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart. Ari, this guy's living the dream.
I'm wearing salmon today, just because it kind of felt like a pastel type color that would have like that Lane Kiffin, Jaxson Dart vibe, you know, that like SoCal cool or on a boat somewhere in the Bahamas. It was really cool to have him on, and at a really great time too, Andy, because Ole Miss, I think, is primed to do something here pretty special. So it was really great to hear from him, and glad that he spared some time for us.
Well, and the Ole Miss availability report came out last night, and a very interesting piece of information on it. Trey Harris, their leading receiver, is probable for this week's game at Florida, and they've been without Trey Harris for about 3.5 games. Now, Lane Kiffin kind of teased this on Monday in his press conference and said basically there's a real good chance that Trey Harris can be able to play. And I think, though, that they've actually kind of figured out a lot of what their offense could and should be without him. And now they get him back, and we kind of get to see what that looks like, too.
Yeah, it's like there was this notion that Ole Miss unlocked its offense because it figured out how to play without Trey Harris. Now you put him back in, and you have that threat while also having confidence in some of your other guys. And guys who stepped up, Andy, like while he was out, Ole Miss's receivers were producing and getting open. We saw it firsthand in Mississippi. So super excited to see what Ole Miss can do this week. And if you've been listening to the show, you know that like if I'm taking any long shot odds right now on any SEC team, like Ole Miss is the most attractive bet to me.
Well, it's interesting because them for the national title, they have the longest odds of a team with a roster capable of winning the national title, if that makes sense.
And arguably are playing their best at the right time. Like other teams in that same SEC 2-loss cluster, you have some questions about Texas offensively right now. I don't know if those are rational or not, but Texas hasn't played an opponent as well as Georgia or as good as Georgia all year. Alabama, it has its warts that we're not sure they've gotten over. Georgia is coming off of a loss at Ole Miss a few weeks ago. Like, who do you feel more confident in the way that they're playing right now? Tennessee lost to Georgia on Saturday. Like, Ole Miss is really, really good. And the thing that I like about them the most, Andy, and I've said this, is if you look at the most important position groups on a team, like they don't have question marks at those positions, right? Like their defensive line is nasty. Their running back is super, super effective. Their wide receiver core is much better even now with Trey Harris coming back than I thought it was. And they've got Jaxson Dart, who came on the show today. So like, I mean, 11-1 just seems like a really tasty number.
Yeah. And again, you just have to look at it. Who has a roster that can win the title? Let's, right before we talk to Jaxson, let's play that game. Let's play the who has the roster capable of winning a national title. I'll name a team. You tell me if their roster to you is capable of going through the gauntlet of winning 3 or 4 games in the college football playoff. So,
okay.
Oregon.
Yes.
Texas.
Yes.
Miami. It's a tricky one, right?
Yes, but yes.
Okay. All right.
Their defense scares me. No.
Okay. Ohio State.
Yes.
Penn State.
No.
Okay. Indiana.
No.
Notre Dame?
No.
Really? Okay. I would have them kind of on the borderline.
Yeah, like, I mean, they are good enough to beat anybody. I don't know if they could beat Alabama, Oregon, and Georgia or Ole Miss in a row.
Okay.
Like, that's what we're doing here, right?
Yes, what we're doing. That's exactly right.
Alabama, yes.
Georgia?
Yes.
Tennessee?
I don't know.
We already said we think Ole Miss does. Anybody I didn't mention that has a roster you think could do it?
I don't think so, no. You know what?
Texas A&M?
Actually, there's one that might be kind of weird. That would
South
be
Carolina.
on the fence for me. South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, and they had 3 losses. So
yeah, and like It's going to sound disrespectful. And you know what? Maybe we'll be proven wrong. Last year, if you would have asked me in July if Michigan had a roster good enough to win the national title, I would have said no definitively. So, I'm not saying that you're eliminated, and I'm not even saying like when I hesitated with Notre Dame and Miami and even Tennessee, like maybe total talent you would think might be okay. But there are certain aspects of those teams that make me wonder if they would be able to beat elite teams 3 times in a row. So, at a certain point, I thought Tennessee was really, really good, but that was when I was under the impression that they hadn't unlocked their offense yet. And I think this is just what their offense is. So like that makes it tough for me.
Yeah.
I think he can beat anybody in the country. I just don't know if you could get by in those grinded out games that they would have to, like if they would have beaten Georgia, that would have taken every ounce of energy to do that. And I don't know if you can do that 3 times in a row, just mathematically.
And that's the thing. That's where this is tricky because we've never seen this before. We've never seen, and we don't know what everybody's path is going to be. So there is a lot.
It's harder now too. Like we have to acknowledge that it's harder now to do it than it used to be. It's easier to get in, but it's harder to win it all.
Well, and nobody has as deep a roster as some of the teams at the top used to have. That's the weirdest part, or the most ironic part, I guess, about all this is they create a thing that would have given a prohibitive advantage to the Alabamas and the Georgias of the previous era. But now I don't think they have the same advantage because nobody's as deep.
Yeah. And I'm in the process of writing a column for tomorrow on 3 about Ohio State's lack of depth on the offensive line and how we got here. And it's just like, this is a team that was supposed to be one of the last remaining super teams of the sport in this setup. And even they can't field an offensive line without a major question mark after sustaining 2 or 3 injuries. So, the depth aspect of this, the depth piece of it is so much different than it used to be. And, like Notre Dame has been playing really well, but Notre Dame lost 2 really important pieces on their offensive line before the year. What does that look like when they play Georgia?
And they've lost some defensive starters for the season too. Okay, I got a little game for you because we're going to talk to Jaxson Dart, who plays for a team that we say has this kind of roster. I want to play a little blind resume game. One of our listeners named Greg sent this in for us, and it is fascinating. Okay, you got Team A and Team B. Team A has scored 224 points in conference play and allowed 177 points. Their scoring margin in conference play is plus 47. Their record versus the common opponents with Team B is 1-2, and their scoring margin versus common opponents is minus 24. Team B, total points scored in conference play 233, allowed in conference play 162, scoring margin in league play plus 71, 1-2 against common opponents, scoring margin versus common opponents -1. Who is Team A and who is Team B?
With no clues of what league we're talking about?
I'll give you the league. I'm happy to give you the league. It's the SEC. Who's Team A and who's Team B?
Oh, man. This is difficult because I don't have
Greg's a genius for this. This is amazing.
But I think that because I brought up South Carolina, one of them is South Carolina, which I think Team B is South Carolina.
Okay, who's Team A?
Alabama.
Nope. Blake Hicks in the chat nailed it.
Oh.
Team A is Georgia, and Team B is South Carolina.
Yeah. How did he do that? That was impressive, Blake.
He's a South Carolina fan, so he was looking and trying to understand.
I get, some credit for picking South Carolina because I kind of got a guess of I saw that the record was 1-2 against common opponents, which means it was probably one of the teams that was either in the cluster or in the SEC, what you told me. But to be able to get that was pretty impressive. Congratulations, Blake.
Here's the thing. And Greg in his letter was very understanding. He's like, I get why South Carolina's out. And if you're comparing South Carolina and Georgia, you say, okay, this is very interesting, but you're basically trading a South Carolina loss to LSU at home for a Georgia win against Texas on the road, which is why Georgia's in the place it's in and South Carolina's in the place it's in. But Greg makes the point that they shouldn't be 8 spots apart in the rankings, which is what they are.
Yeah. The thing that's just interesting about this whole thing with common opponents is that were you at home or were you on the road? Was it at night? Was it at noon? Like, what was I know that we always try, and it's the only data that we have to kind of like draw a straight line between team A and team B because one team beat that team by 1 million and the other one won by 5. And it's just like, how it goes. Like there's some weeks where you just don't play well or the other team, hits a turnover in the beginning of the game. And it's just like the thing that is difficult about South Carolina is that all the interesting data points that you just put up, you don't need them. You know what you need? Your eyes. Like, if you've watched South Carolina play in the last month, I think that South Carolina would be in a game with Georgia. Like, is that a weird thing to say? Like, I think that they could beat Georgia. I think they could beat just about anybody in the top 15
which
now.
Was the point of this exercise, because they're the one team that's out definitively. That if they got in, you'd be like, yeah, I can see them making a run.
And it's like, on one hand, I do want to feel bad because South Carolina only had to win one of the 2 games they had all but won that they've lost, right? Like the games that they lost,
Alabama or LSU, either one of them.
They were both in position to win those games. And if they would have won one of them, they would be in that cluster and the team that they beat would be out. Could you imagine if South Carolina would have beaten LSU, the mess we'd be in right now?
It'd be a lot of fun. But you know who definitively beat South Carolina? Ole Miss. Yeah. Ole Miss, led by a quarterback named Jaxson Dart, a guy who grew up in Utah, who went to USC first, then came to Ole Miss, and has had a wonderful career there. And he joins the show right now. I got to start out with this. A guy growing up in Utah. Like, could you have ever imagined being the king of Oxford, Mississippi? Like, if you go back to your 12-year-old self and explain what your life is now, what would he have said?
Well, I probably wouldn't have found myself in Mississippi, I think, going into it. I remember getting in the transfer portal, and when I was getting recruited here, like, I had to look up where Mississippi was on the map. But no, it's been a wonderful experience, and I've always wanted to play big-time football. So I think just me having the dreams and aspirations of playing against the best competition just, landed me in the best possible place that I feel like I could be in, playing in the SEC with a great team, with a great coaching staff. And I think just as a little kid, you dreamed of playing on the big stage and big moments. So I think that I'm just really grateful to be a part of, what we got going on here.
Jaxson, I don't know if you remember me, but we talked on the phone on October 19th of 2020. And this was...
How's he supposed to remember that?
Well, I'm a pretty awesome person to remember. But I remember I was writing a recruiting column about you because you committed late in the process, or you had remained uncommitted late in the process of your high school recruitment. And as a result, your offer list exploded and you were a pretty fast riser before ultimately ending up at USC. But during your recruitment and now looking at the way that things turned out now, what did you learn about Ole Miss and the second time through it that you might not have known when you were a high schooler? And then what would your advice be to high school quarterbacks trying to find a destination that you might not have known at the beginning?
Yeah, well, the recruiting process, as you can expect, is completely different from what it was when I was in high school, just the ability to transfer and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing that I learned is just trying to really just put yourself in the best situation to be developed. And it's not even as much, I think a lot of times as high school, obviously you're going to have the dreams and aspirations of, I want to start as a freshman. But I feel like the most important thing is development. And, from a coaching standpoint, from just, making sure that you have the pieces around you. I think especially as a quarterback, like, you have to have, guys around you. That's just what makes you successful. And so I think, like, the biggest thing that I took away is the development piece of it. And at the same time, you got to set aside your comfort. Moving across the country is a hard thing to do when you're moving away from family. But if it's the best place for you, that's going to help, exceed and excel you in the direction that you want to go, that's ultimately what's the most important.
What was your first exposure to Lane Kiffin? Did he recruit you at all out of high school? I'm sure, because he would have been at FAU during the later part of your high school career, so probably wasn't heading out there. But how was it during the transfer process that you first came into contact with him, or did you have that before?
No, me and Coach Kiff met for the first time when I was in the portal. I think a big piece of it for me was that, or for him, was that he had just got done coaching Matt Corral, who was a West Coast kid. And, when I first got here, I was the only West Coast kid on our whole team. So I think that made the interaction a little bit easier. Plus, with him having experience on the West Coast and coaching at USC and living out there and whatnot. But our first interaction was through the transfer portal. And I think the very first time that we ever talked, he was on a boat fishing in the Bahamas. So I was like,
do you kind of feel like you guys have like similar vibes? You got like the blonde hair, the sun-kissed skin, like just like that surfer mentality. Like I heard the golf down there is pretty nice. Andy tries to sell me on Biloxi all the time. Do you feel like you guys are like of the same ilk? Like you're going to be on a boat in the Bahamas one day?
Geez, I hope. Or in like Monaco or something. That'd be cool.
Monaco. Okay. You're more like me then.
No, I think me, Coach, our personalities just mesh well. He's a lot of fun, on and off the field. And I think from a competitive standpoint, really all he cares about is winning. And I think that's something as a player you can really respect and really buy into. So I think just the more and more time that we've spent together, our relationships got stronger, and he's super passionate what he does. And I've loved playing with him.
So let's go to that Georgia game. And he said after the game, he thought when you got hurt on the first series, he's worried you're not coming back. You said after that game, you were always coming back. So when you're in there and the trainers are working on you and Austin's running that one drive, like what's going through your mind?
Well, I never had a doubt that I was going to come back in the game. There's a few precaution things that you have to take care of when you have, a little injury like that. So just had to get that wrapped up. And then, take a little Advil, and then I'm ready to go.
Jaxson, Andy and I were at the Georgia game, and we were standing on the sidelines at the end there before the players rushed the field. But there was a moment that I was just looking up at the video board, and it was as you guys were kneeling at the clock, and you were walking off the field, and all the kids and the fans were on the side of the fence ready to jump over. They were on the sidelines, and it zoomed up on you on the screen. And I don't even know if you saw it yourself, but like you were screaming and like yelling, like this is our house. I don't know what you were saying, probably not so eloquently as that, but like the emotion of that win of like Ole Miss has been waiting years and years and years to not just get to a point where they beat Georgia, but are in a national championship race and discussion. Like what was that moment like for you to scream, let out all that, maybe excitement, frustration from things that didn't go in the past? Like take me into that moment.
Yeah, I think there was just a lot going through my mind. We had put ourselves in a pretty adverse situation with losing the 2 games that we did, especially in the fashion that we did. We felt that we just completely let those games go, and we felt like we had control of them until the very end. So going into the game, we were just our backs were against the wall, and that's how we feel like we're playing a playoff game each and every week, because we understand, if we lose, we're out. So, just the emotions of going into that game are really high, and we knew that, what was at stake for us. And, as you said, like this was a big game for Ole Miss, just as a program, and winning it was huge. So, ultimately, like, this is why a lot of us came back. This is why a lot of guys from different schools who are some of the best players in the country transferred in here, was to compete and win these types of games. So it was just a special moment to see the team like rally behind one another through all the adversity that we faced so far this regular season, and really just be resilient.
How did that group, like you and Jared Ivey and the older leaders of this team, rally everybody after the LSU game? What did you say to everybody?
I think it was nice that we had a bye after that, so guys could really just have their emotions and thoughts to themselves, and just have a little bit of time to really just reflect on everything. And I think the main message that we had with one another was, there's a purpose that we all came here together. There's a purpose of how everything has shaken out the way that it has, and we just had to keep holding faith. And I think, when you're in a situation like that, you can go two different ways. You can just fold and just give up, or you can buck up. And I think that we have a lot of guys who have that mindset of just, we're going to buck up, regardless of what we've gone through, what people have to say about us, and, just try to stack days. And I think that once we were able to have that second half against Oklahoma and then have the game against Arkansas, like, it really just gave us a ton of confidence.
Jaxson, so you guys won 11 games, right, last year, and you said that you had a bunch of people who wanted to come back to be in the position that you're in right now. But as the quarterback and leader of the team and program right now, what was it like seeing guys like Walter Nolan come in, Juice Wells come in? Like, in the moment, we all know that Ole Miss's boosters, everybody has gone all in on this season. But as the quarterback, was it exciting? Did you feel a responsibility to deliver? I mean, what was it like being the quarterback on a team that really was pushing their chips all in to have a big year this year?
Yeah, it was super neat to kind of see how it all unfolded. Just, Ole Miss's history, like, you don't really consistently get those types of recruits and players to Ole Miss, especially before, the system that we're in nowadays. So just seeing guys like that from all over the country. I mean, even like Princely, who came from Florida, like, it was just, I think that they really saw the momentum that was going on with this program. They see the excitement that we have, especially with a head coach like Coach Kiffin. And there's just a lot of juices flowing, and it's a lot of fun to be an Ole Miss Rebel right now. And I think that ultimately our product showed on the field last year, and it just turned into something where people just really wanted to be a part of it. And it was awesome building relationships with those guys. And, we were in, competition with other schools to get them, but, they saw the vision of this program.
Well, and now, like, Princely's going back to Gainesville this week, because you've had a couple of those. Juice goes back to Columbia. Yeah. Princely goes back to Gainesville. What is that like for guys? And do your teammates, do you make fun of them during the week? Do you say anything, or are you just, mining them for information?
Yeah, we're definitely getting information off of them from their experience. But at the same time, I think that they do all that they can to try to treat it like it's another game, which is, we're human. So you're going to have a little bit more emotions going into the week. And I'm sure, running out into the stadium, you're going to feel a type of way, and it might feel a little bit awkward. But at the same time, I think that those guys are just super blessed and happy to be here at Ole Miss. And they want to do all that they can to win each and every game, regardless of who we're playing. And, I think just as players and guys on the team, we do all we can to just support them and ultimately just try to get the victory, especially for them.
Jaxson, I know that you guys have a backs against the wall, win every game mentality, like you said, right? Every game's a playoff game. That used to just be called the regular season, but here we are. I was just wondering, Andy, I did that for you.
I know, appreciate it.
When you beat a team like Georgia, it's not just another win. It is a statement in terms of where you guys are at physically as a roster, what you guys are able to do, because they are viewed as the standard, right? Does something shift in your brain? I know you're working, you're building, you're confident in yourselves at all times, but when you accomplish that win, does something change in your brains where it's like, boys, we could actually do this? Like, we could win a national title.
Yeah, I think so. You have those thoughts. But the best thing that you can do is honestly just have the mindset of just trying to go 1-0 each and every week. Especially with the 12-team playoff. I think that honestly got us hurt in the regular season of losing those two games. Like, I think that the games that we lost, like, our focus wasn't solely on that one team. And at times we wrapped our head around, too much of the playoff and what the season could be. And I think it really just grounded us and really humbled us losing those games. And I think, the momentum that we have after winning a game like that, like when you take down, what we viewed as the top team in the whole country, it definitely gives your team some hope and confidence moving forward.
So you mentioned earlier, boat in the Bahamas is fine. Boat in Monaco might be better. Now you've got a private jet NIL deal already. Like, how close are we to getting the yacht deal?
Geez, that would be sweet, huh? I mean,
Andy,
That would be sweet. I've always talked about how I've always wanted a yacht in Monaco. So, I mean, hey.
Jaxson, I've got to ask you, though, when you have an NIL deal with a jet situation, how does that manifest in your life? Like, can you abuse this privilege? Like, can we bring, like, I mean, what do we do with it?
Let's go get dinner in LA tonight.
I mean, what do you do with it? Seriously, can you, like, do you have use of this jet? And have you done anything with it?
Yeah, honestly, I've only used the jet for me and my teammates. If we need to go get, treatment in a place or just get, some type of work to, whether it's in the off season of, getting one-on-one reps or things like that. Like I haven't used any of it for myself. I've always used it for my teammates and things like that because, I would have never even got that without them. So, I do all I can to really show those privileges.
After the season, I'm going to come to Oxford. Me and you, we're going to take this jet to Vegas. Like, come on, let's get some people on this jet.
He's a Utah guy. He's gonna take all these Southern dudes to Park City and show them what it's like. Get them on Main Street, Park City, right before Sundance. Let's go.
You're trying to like mess up my Vegas trip with Jaxson Dart?
I love that.
You need a Park City trip in your life, and you'll forget Vegas.
I've been to Park City. There's no casinos there.
Jaxson, thank you so much. Good luck in Gainesville this weekend.
Awesome.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks for having me.
I think you're getting that casino trip, Ari. Pre-draft sometime. Put up the sign, Producer River. 0 days since Ari's last mic issue. If you're listening in podcast form, I'm sure what Ari said was hilarious, but we don't know what it was. Come on, Ari. Nope. Still can't hear you. This is great. I love this. This is so great. Oh, my goodness. I don't know if we're going to get Ari for the rest of the show, so I actually may be answering mailbag questions by myself. And you guys can't see this. Oh, okay. Producer River's going to let you see it now. We're going to watch Ari struggle. All right. I'm actually going to talk to you a little bit about what else we got to talk about today. If Ari gets his mic back, then we'll be in good shape. But we do have to talk about the Indiana-Ohio State game. And it's the biggest game of the week. Just as we all predicted this time last year. This would be the biggest game in the country. Indiana at Ohio State. Well, that's where we are. Undefeated Indiana. One loss to Ohio State. Ari slapping the mic. I hear it. Yeah, buddy. What you got?
That wasn't my fault, dude. I just had to leave the studio and come back in, but no settings changed. Like that was.
Listen. I feel you. It's not your fault.
Do you know what I said when you couldn't hear me?
No, I don't. I don't read lips like that guy read Brian Kelly's lips at the Florida game.
By the way, that's exactly what he was saying. He nailed it. Like there's no other way he said anything else.
Well,
yeah.
Why are you jumping? and then broke down like how many times he has jumped prematurely this season. It was pretty great.
What I said into the mic when you couldn't hear me was, "Yay, my mic works."
Oh, Alanis, that is the definition of irony. All right, we do need to talk about Indiana and Ohio State. Ari, this game will tell us a lot because all of these arguments about Indiana are completely hypothetical until we know what happens in this game. I think the assumption is Indiana is going to lose, and the assumption is that Indiana is going to lose by like 10 points. Well, what if they don't? What if they win? What if they lose by 30? Like all of these things are on the table. Let's take a look at some of the potential numbers in this game from our friends at PrizePicks. You know what PrizePicks is? The best daily fantasy game in America. Download the app, use the code Staples, play $5, get $50 instantly. And I'm going to go straight to a number that I think is really, really important. That is the Will Howard rushing yards total. Indiana allows 2.5 yards a carry to opponents. Their rush defense is awesome. Will Howard, though the numbers are not huge, in the Penn State game, used his feet in a way that allowed them to keep moving the ball, keep drives alive. And I think it was very critical, even though he only wound up with 24 rushing yards. Now, there were some sacks there too. His rushing number on PrizePicks is 13.5 yards. That's probably assuming a few sacks. If it's more than, I think Ohio State's winning this game.
I think it's going to be more than, Andy, because don't you think that they're going to do more rollout stuff, more things that get him out into space to try to make up for maybe some of the things they might be facing up front with this injury? Like, what's the best way as an offense to design plays that help you mitigate offensive line issues? Like, aren't rollouts?
Yeah, sprint outs, rollouts, move the pocket. Yeah, and
I think
I
think Ohio State found during the Penn State game that they can do a lot of damage with design runs and things like that. And also, too, what do design runs with the quarterback do? Essentially gives you an extra blocker, right? Because if you hand the ball off to a running back, then there's nobody in the play to block. So I think that is a low number. I think that's really low.
Spoken like a man who went to a lot of Urban Meyer press conferences.
I went to a lot of those coaching camps in the summertime because we needed content.
Plus them with the quarterback run. I agree. Let's look at a couple other key numbers here. Let's pull up Omar Cooper. Omar Cooper is the second leading receiver for Indiana. Oh, good. We've got Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, Justice Ellison, and Curtis Rourke all in one block here if you're looking at it on the screen. So Omar Cooper's receiving yards number is 28.5. Omar Cooper averages 22 yards a catch. So we're basically saying Omar Cooper going to catch 2 passes? More or less. And I think that's interesting. I think the folks at PrizePicks think that Ohio State's defense is going to severely limit Indiana's passing game because they've got Omar Cooper at 28.5, Elijah Surratt at 52.5, Curtis Rourke at 221.5. I'm telling you, if Curtis gets to 221, Omar and Elijah are going to have more than that. Just saying.
Well, if these numbers aren't hit from Indiana, they're going to lose and maybe lose big. Like those are pretty low receiving totals, and I get that they're lower because you got to kind of pick which receiver you think might actually be the one that has a huge game. But if Indiana wins, I think the over has to hit. Like I think they need to win in a game that was like the Oregon game. Like I don't know that there's going to be any clock ball control type stuff here. I think that they need to go out and score and be aggressive and show off like what Surratt is like. Cause like people know Indiana's good, but like, I don't think people know who Elijah Surratt is. Like, I don't think they like watch the games to know how good that kid is.
And what you pointed out about the Oregon game, that was the one game we've seen this season where Ohio State's DBs did get burned. And Oregon is interesting because Oregon throws a lot of passes near the line of scrimmage. They went deep on Ohio State. They tried to go over the top on Ohio State and it worked. And it was kind of going against trend, going against type. Well, Indiana can go deep on you. They've seen somebody do it to Ohio State. The question is, can they do it to Ohio State?
Well, Ohio State cornerback Denzel Burke is supposed to be a first-round draft pick, coming back this year, and he hasn't had a great year. And also, too, Oregon has Evan Stewart, and Evan Stewart showed up and had the best game of his career in that game. Mm-hmm. And Evan Stewart is really, really, really fast and really good. So, like, Indiana, like, that's the thing, too. It's just like you go back and you look at the Ohio State loss at Oregon and you break it down, the box scores were the same. And then Oregon had really good players making really good plays. Like that's what having good players is. And Indiana has really good players, but Indiana's really good players have not been tested at this level yet. So there is kind of this wild card of like, well, Elijah Surratt is really good, but is he going to be able to beat Denzel Burke or whoever is covering him over the top 3 times in a game? Like, and that is a different proposition than doing it against Purdue or Indiana or one of the other teams in the league that they beat by 100. Doing it against Nebraska, whoever they just beat. Like it's just a different ball game, especially on the road. Can he do it? Absolutely, but we don't know for sure that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm looking at the receiving numbers here, and one thing I will point out, because you want to do a comparison, You're going to look at Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper's yards per reception. They're off the charts. Elijah Surratt's like 18 yards a catch. Omar Cooper's like 22. If you go and look at Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart's at Oregon, they're actually much lower. Don't be fooled by that. That's a lot of that's a function of the way Oregon's offense works. You put those two in Indiana's offense, they would have incredible yards per catch numbers too. But
nobody's going to sit here and act like Indiana's receivers are as good as Oregon's, right? Like, we're not going to play this game.
Well, if they do the same thing to Ohio State, they're in the conversation. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. So
Buckeye Killer says Indiana's never played in an environment like this. Even with Ohio State's O-line issues, I think they get rolled. Listen, Nebraska didn't get rolled. Nebraska's way worse than Indiana. So I'm just telling you, if the O-line issues are real, if it's not a seamless transition as they replace Seth McLaughlin, it's going to be a close game. And Justice Ellison is another interesting number in this game. If we're looking at PrizePicks numbers, 41.5 rush yards. He's got to go more than that for them to win. He's got to. That's Indiana wins games by controlling tempo. Justice Ellison is how they definitely control tempo.
Yeah.
So he's got to do more than that. But that is what you need to watch for Indiana, Ohio State, noon Eastern on Saturday. Biggest game of the week. Never thought we'd be saying that, but here we are. Love it. Love it. All right. Let's talk about our friends at Panini. The most collectible sports cards in America. I knew this would excite you. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to collect your favorite college and NFL stars. I have one more pack of the Luminance series. So the Luminance series is the one that has the NIL autograph series, that has guys like Arch Manning, DJ Lagway. It's very exciting. Now, we've only gotten one of the NIL series ones out of here. We got an Oronde Gadsden, the second autograph. We've gotten some really cool cards. We got this Michael Vick autograph. We got a really cool jersey swatch from Blake Corum. So we've had some fun with this, but I'm still excited. Like, am I gonna get one of these big time NIL cards? So let's open this pack. We are ripping this pack. Let's take a look at what we got. Joe Burrow, never heard of him. He's pretty good. Will Anderson Jr., also very good, but we're in base card territory. Well, Matthew Stafford, Mike Evans. Now we've got the Engaged series. Jesse Bates there. We've got, little AOC numbered for you Purdue fans out there. Aiden O'Connell, numbered to 300 autograph card. Numbered Ainias Smith rookie card for you Texas A&M fans.
Can I have that?
No, I'm keeping it. Jamari Thrash. Michael Penix Jr. in his Washington uniform. Quinyon Mitchell in his Toledo uniform, baby. The Rockets making it onto the card. All right.
I wanted to show some of my recent hits that I've gotten.
Yeah. Let's see.
Prepared for PSA, who grades them. This is a gold club level Bijan numbered to 10, which is kind of like the Bijan Robinson equivalent of the Puka card you hit.
Exactly.
And the best part about this is that it's numbered to 7 out of 10, and people like the fact that the number matches the actual jersey number.
See, my Puka is number 1 out of 10.
And that also, first on the print is good, and jersey matches. Here's a Jaxson Smith and Jigba tie-dye out of the Select product. That one's going to PSA. I've got another Jaxson Smith and Jigba. That's out of the Asian Obsidian, and that's like a gold numbered to 6 gold flood that you can only get in the product that they release in Asia. But you can find it online if you really want it. I did. Zay Flowers, Donruss Optic, blue to 199. We have CJ Stroud out of Score. This is something that Panini sent me. I pulled this out of the Panini product, out to 35. That's a rookie card. Love that.
Who better plug wants to know if he can have it.
Ari, can I have that, please? Maybe. It depends on what that is. I got the Rashee Rice out of Contenders Optic rookie auto here. That's pretty sexy. And Quentin Johnston, green pulsar to 35, rookie card out of Contenders.
You had a great game the other night.
Bryce Young here out of Select. That's the tricolor. And then like I've just got stacks and stacks of cards I'm going through, and these are the ones I'm going to send to PSA. I actually have not given up on Bryce Young yet. I think it's a good buy right now. Hold and hope for the best. And I also, you know what I did? I just want to let you know I didn't buy it directly from Panini, but I bought it on eBay. Was the Will Levis Donruss Optic blue cracked ice to 15 rookie card. That's a monster card. I got it for like $150. And if Will Levis turns out to be really good, that could be like a $3,000 card. So yeah, Panini.
Don't get any mayo on it.
I won't get any mayonnaise on it. But if I wish I could pick up my camera and show you my entire, what's that, an armoire? Like it's just filled with card singles, and it drives my wife crazy, but I can't get enough of this stuff.
Well, visit PaniniAmerica.net to get started with your collection, and you might be Ari someday.
They should make cards of me.
Listen, if we cultivate this relationship with Panini and they really like working with us, we might get our own limited edition. Like imagine pulling an Ari Gold Rush autograph
heavy
numbered to 10.
Heavy hitters with a burger, holding the burger. Andy, do you think that there's a chance that Will Levis is ever a really good NFL quarterback, or did I waste my money?
I don't like your chances, Ari.
Okay.
Producer River says what we're going to do is we're going to have the Ari Salmon Hoodie card. That's the premium product. The black t-shirt will be the base card.
This hoodie is super comfortable, and it's like I put it on this morning to go get my wife a coffee, and I was just like having a cute fall Dallas morning, and I brought it back, and here I am. I'm kind of like these types of colors, and I'm like trying now that I'm not a blimp anymore. I'm just a smaller blimp to wear something other than just black t-shirts that hide your weight. I'm trying to like bring color in and look cute. Like
our friends at Roback have pretty much every color in the performance hoodie. I'm wearing one today. RHOBACK, code Andy for 20% off your first purchase. And that's Andy and Ari squeezing every advertisement into.
Well, also, just so you know, you always say during the Roback ad, Andy, that your people steal it. The Roback hoodies that they sent me, my wife has taken.
Gone.
I can't even wear them. Like they're like somewhere in her underwear drawer. Like she hides them from me. So like I've been worried that I can't find them. And it's funny because she's like 4'11" and 103 pounds. So when she puts on my XXL Roback hoodie, like it goes down to her ankles and it's like a dress, but she loves it. So yeah, it's
that's the fit they want. Like my daughter is 13. That's all the girls want, like the XXL men's sweatshirt. That they want it to look like a dress. So you're unfortunately you're going to have two of them. Like in 10 years, you'll have two of them stealing your Roback hoodies.
Yes. Yeah. But the material is really great. It really is.
Oh yeah. So time for the mailbag. Dear Andy, dear Ari.
Love starting the mailbag 43 minutes in. Love it.
We got some great questions. We'll start with Johnny in Texas. Dear Andy, with the recent injury of Seth McLaughlin at Ohio State, it made me wonder if, for example, Dylan Gabriel goes down for the rest of the season. Would the CFP choose to leave the Ducks out of the playoff, citing precedents from Florida State last year? Now, we don't want to predict injury for anybody, obviously, but this is an interesting thought exercise because that was the excuse that was given for leaving Florida State out. Jordan Travis's injury. Now, look, since Jordan Travis has not been Florida State's quarterback, I actually kind of think it was less of an excuse than a legitimate concern. But in the 12-team era, an undefeated team is not getting left out because the quarterback got hurt. That's not happening. But will injuries play into it? Like, for example, we talked about South Carolina earlier. If Lenore Sellers doesn't go down at halftime of the LSU game, South Carolina wins that game, right?
Yeah. Well, here's what we have to break down. Okay. First of all, there's no such thing as precedent when it comes to the committee. They don't look at decisions that were made in the past and adhere to those things, right? That's the definition of precedent. It happened before, so we have to use that as a guideline on what to do now. Isn't that how the law works, Andy? I was on jury duty, but they didn't call me. I don't know for sure, but it's like this happened in 1977, which is precedent for how it's supposed to go now.
Correct. That changes as society changes, but yes, correct.
But that's not how the college football playoff committee works. They don't even have precedent on things that they did the week before half the time.
Right.
So like they do what they think is best in the moment, and then the next week when there's a new moment, they try to do what they think is best in that moment. Second of all, last year's season was an absolute dumpster fire in terms of having 5 teams to choose from and only 4 spots. Like even if Florida State would have gone, Alabama would have felt slighted. And I think that the reason why Florida State, it would have been the first year, no matter what, Andy, that we felt like it was an impossible decision. Like somebody would have felt slighted, and that would have been the first time since even 14 that happened to anybody. But we also had sample size of what post Jordan Travis Florida State looked like.
Right. The Florida game and the ACC
offense.
championship game. They had 2 games of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I understand, though I thought the decision was wrong, that you have to reward the team that kept winning. I don't think that Florida State was a better football team than Alabama at the time the decision was made. So that is how we got there. That said, now there are more spots, right? So if Oregon's an undefeated team or a 1-loss team and like their quarterback gets injured in the Big Ten championship game, with a month to prepare and how many slots are left, you still like there's more margin for error of like putting them down at the bottom of the bracket, but still in, right? Like
right.
Last year there were no spots, so there was no risk that can be made. But like now, a team that you're unsure of, like Florida State, if this happened last year, like Florida State could have easily been the 9 or 8 seed, right? And it wouldn't have been a problem. So also, Oregon has Dante Moore on its team, a player who has started in the Pac-12 in the past. Like, I don't know that I believe that Oregon's offense would be as dysfunctional as Florida State's became after Jordan Travis got injured last year. So it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of things.
Yeah, and the other thing with Florida State, that was a weird situation because Tate Rodemaker played against Florida, got hurt, and then couldn't play against Louisville in the ACC championship game. So they were down to the 3rd stringer, Brock Glenn, at that point. And so it was a weird situation. But I don't think so. The Seth McLaughlin injury, it's funny because we talk about this in terms of quarterback injuries, not funny, but we talk about it in terms of quarterback injuries. I would argue that if Ohio State were to lose this game because of Seth McLaughlin's injury and then figure out their offensive line for the Michigan game, that you probably would take that into account, maybe. But I don't think they're thinking about it that hard. I think they wanted a reason to leave out Florida State, and they left out Florida State.
And taking into account Seth McLaughlin's injury, if it cost him the Indiana game, the math will equal the same result, right? Like whether he got injured or not, because if they lose to Indiana, they're probably still in. So like
at the bottom of the bracket instead of the top.
Fully healthy Ohio State with a loss to Indiana is still probably in the field. So
also, Ori, because of all the deliberate misseeding, I'm not sure being the 11 seed is really all that different from, it depends on how it all breaks out. Like the 11 seed might wind up with an easier path depending on who the 3 seed is.
Look at your bracket, Andy. Would you rather be the 11 or the 7?
I'd rather be the 11. Much rather be the 11.
Would you rather be the 11 or the 7? Is funny because the 7 has an unequivocally harder path. And also too, the seeding, I think we're going to come to find out is going to be complete nonsense when we finally get to the end.
They're going to change this in 2026 because it's going to see it like when you actually see it and it's real and that's how they have to play the games. They're going to be like, this is so stupid. We have to fix this. They're going to change it in 2026. I'm telling you right now. They'll maybe have the auto bids for the conference champs, but it's going to be that gets you in. It doesn't get you seated in the wrong place.
What's the repair? I don't even know how to fix it because you can't reseed because they need to know their opponents in advance.
No,
right?
you just say you don't give because remember they're going to go to 14, so there's only going to be 2 buys, and you just don't do the automatic buys for conference champs. You just say you rank them 1 through 14. The top 5 conference champs get in. So if the 5th highest ranked conference champ is ranked number 16, well, they'll get in as the 14 seed, and the number 14 falls out and doesn't get the at-large. But you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the first seeds.
Yeah. Can I ask you just this is the Ari mailbag question? Because I just saw in the comments here that they would rather have the 7 seed than the 11 because they get a home game. Would you rather play a home game against a team that might win the national championship, or would you rather play an away game against a team that you're unequivocally better than?
Choice B. I want to play against the team I'm better than. People don't think. People look and don't think.
Oh, home game. Like, that's okay. Would you rather play the Patriots at home or your little brother's JV team on the road? Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, and for those listening in podcast form, the way the bracket set up, we were using the committee's rankings from this week. So it would be Georgia at 11 playing at Penn State in the first round, or Indiana at 7 hosting Ole Miss. The Georgia Penn State winner plays Miami. The Ole Miss Indiana winner plays Texas. I would rather be Georgia in that situation. I would also rather be Penn State in that situation. So, 11's better than 7 in that situation. So, all right, next question. Dear Andy and Ari, first thing, I was at the Florida game on Saturday for my first one in the Swamp, and upset didn't run into you. Sorry about this, Colin. This is Colin who's asking the question. I did run into Brandon Spikes randomly, and that is a large man. Yes, former Florida linebacker Brandon Spikes will make you wonder how huge people like that ever played linebacker, but he did and played it really well. Anyways, UF recruiting is bouncing back after that electric win versus LSU, and Florida players may single-handedly get Napier back in good graces. Do either of you recall a single win for a program that changed the trajectory upward for university, even during a losing or 500 season? Thanks. And by the way, Ari, congrats on the weight loss journey. I am currently on the same journey. So, Colin, now I don't know that the LSU game for Florida reversed that much. I do think it certainly helped. I think DJ Lagway, the quarterback, the entity, is what is saving Billy Napier this season. But I do think that helped. And now Florida is trying to flip. Let's put up that graphic of the Florida flip targets, because there's quite a few of them. Naeem offered the 5-star plus corner who's committed to Ohio State. They're trying to get Solomon Thomas, the offensive lineman, committed to Florida State. Dallas Wilson, the receiver, committed to Oregon. Dallas Wilson's a Tampa guy. Jamie French is a receiver from Jacksonville, committed to Texas. Defensive lineman Myron Charles, who committed to Texas. Tavares Dice, who's a DT, or an OT, who's committed to Auburn. That's who they're trying to get. They're trying to flip some of those guys. They might get one or two, and if they do, that's great. Trying to think of a game. There's a Florida game that comes to mind, and it's the 2005 Tennessee game. Now, it wasn't during an under 500 or even a 500 season, but it's funny because this is how much the standards have changed at Florida. That was Urban Meyer's first year. He ended up winning 8 games that season. I think they won 9 games with the bowl game, but 8 games that regular season. And everybody thought that was a failure. And just like Ron Zook's last season, and we're a little down, but the recruiting was up. And so that Tennessee game was one where they had Tim Tebow, Percy Harvin, Brandon Spikes in the house. I believe all those guys came back for the Florida State game, but the Tennessee game was early in the season. It was kind of when they got together and realized, all right, if we all come and we're all together, this could be a pretty interesting situation. Ari, I'm trying to think of some other situations where a team was not having that great of a year, but you could tell by the end of the season the trajectory was right, and they had a good recruiting class coming.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of just coaches that were once really much what was are there any Michigan games that stand out before Harbaugh took off that make you feel because who are the coaches that were on the hot seat that turned around and won big later? I don't even know if
it was Harbaugh, but that was because the 2020 season that was just
yeah, and
that doesn't really count.
So. And then he was good. They didn't have They didn't have a win in 2020 that made you be okay. And he was already towards the end of his tenure at that point. I'm trying to think of something that's similar. Nothing's coming to mind right now.
Yeah, that Urban Meyer one, and again, it's not the same thing because this Florida team is very different record-wise and a very different place in terms of where it is in the SEC than the 05 and 04 Florida teams were. But at the time, the Florida fans considered that to be disastrous and unacceptable. And so that was the class that really did turn it around and bring them back to national title contention, that 2006 class. So it was those guys getting together, I'd say, in the 05 Tennessee game that really did it. And that was a trouncing of Tennessee by Florida in the Swamp. All right, another question from Tyler. This is different, Tyler, than the first question. If Army beats Notre Dame, would Army and Boise State get in, pushing out the Big 12 or the ACC champ? This is a really interesting question. Given the rankings as they are, the answer is yes. If the rankings were to stay similar to what they are, if Army beats Notre Dame and then beats Tulane for the American Championship and I don't even think they have to beat UTSA in between, but they probably would. So let's say Army's undefeated, beats Tulane for the American Championship. And let's say that Boise State continues to win, plays UNLV again in the Mountain West Championship, wins that, it's 12-1. And then your Big 12 champ's going to be a 1-loss BYU, a 2-loss Colorado, a 2-loss Arizona State. Could be a 2-loss BYU. Actually, I don't think it could. Could be a 2-loss Iowa State, though. They're still in it. Right now, the closest team to Boise State is BYU, and they're 2 spots away. I think if BYU were to win out, Ari, because they'd have to beat Arizona State this weekend, they'd probably have to beat Colorado in the Big 12 championship game. I think they might have a chance of getting in over Boise State. Would Colorado or Arizona State, though? Like, Arizona State's way back there.
There is no scenario where 2 group of 5 teams are going to make it at the expense of a power conference champion, in my opinion.
If you say so. Now, Notre Dame has to beat Ohio State. Notre Dame has to beat Army. If Notre Dame beats Army, that's it. So,
here's Tulane still exists too. So I don't know that if it's just Army beats Notre Dame, they got to go win their conference still.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that would be very hard. But I'm saying if Notre Dame beats Army, this is not even a concern.
Right,
this is
right.
Yeah.
Andy, before you go to the next question, just wanted to point out that Julian Lewis, the 5-star quarterback, will announce his decision on Pat McAfee at 12:10 Eastern time, which is around when we might be live.
We'll be finishing up in the hard count. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
okay, cool.
Julian Lewis, recruit from Carrollton, Georgia, quarterback recruit, had been committed to USC, decommitted from USC. Who's he going to commit to, Ari? Who knows? It's Colorado. He's going to commit to Colorado. That's the answer.
It's electric. Wouldn't it be crazy if he went on there and everybody thought it was Colorado and it was just IU going into the Ohio State game? Oh my God, that'd be electric.
That would be unbelievable, Coach Sig. They bring on Coach Six could just drive over from Bloomington because Pat McAfee's studio is in Indianapolis.
Put a cigarette in his ear when he comes on.
I don't think he wants to. He wants to be a good example for the kids. No, he's going to Colorado because, I noticed on Get Up multiple Deion Sanders segments, mentions of Julian Lewis on Get Up. They don't talk recruiting on shows like this. So Deion's pressing the buttons right now. Siggs has some buttons to press, but I don't think he has those buttons.
That's electric. I cannot believe this. If you would have told me in September that we would be on the show November 21st talking about Colorado making the playoff and Julian Lewis committing there, I would have shit my pants. So good on Deion.
Exactly. And we'll talk about it more because we've got it. We're going to do probably a dedicated Julian Lewis to Colorado video when he does commit. But I think there's something that Deion can offer in terms of NIL and that sort of thing, even though they don't have as much money necessarily at Colorado as some of these other schools. Like Deion gets you into a KFC commercial.
Is it against coach does rules for the coach who is in every other commercial during the Super Bowl getting his players in commercials with him?
He's gotten his players into commercials.
No, I know, but there's no gray area. Commercial. There's no gray area there.
The company can say that's who we hired. That the coach had nothing to do with it.
They could have put Julian Lewis in an Aflac commercial and make up the difference of what they lack in NIL. I mean, theoretically.
Look at that. That's synergy right there. The question is, what will Nick Saban say about that?
That would be the best part. Like Nick Saban coaching up Julian Lewis in some regard. Like I don't write commercials, but they could come up with something funny.
You just wrote one. You just wrote one.
And here's my take on commercials, Andy. They should always be funny. Every one of them. There should never be a serious commercial.
No. All right. This question comes from Joe. Not so much a question, just an observation on a lot of things. Well, he's got one question, but the rest of it's amazing. And I want to meet Joe and his daughter, like driving to ballet, listening to our show, because I would never be able to get my daughter, who's the same age, who I also often drive to ballet, to listen to our show. So I appreciate that Joe's daughter is cool. So from Joe, my Longhorns haven't beaten anyone of note, yet they are a great win for Georgia. This is a circular argument. How can both views be accurate at the same time? Also, the Dogs' defense kicked our ass in the first half only. Their offense had 4 scoring drives that averaged 20 yards. Clearly better than my team, but not an ass whipping. 2, as my Longhorns prove their worth on the field, what would excite the Aggies most? Beating us and missing the playoff, or losing to us and making the playoff? Don't do the middle math to determine if these scenarios are possible. Musings with my 13-year-old daughter to and from ballet. Goose, let's dress up for Halloween as Annie and Ari. I love the niche costume. I will be the lumberjack with a plunger below, and you can wear one of your princess costumes and be Ari, do his penchant for bidets. I sent my daughter your tweet about Ari and his Slurpee. Her response was, "Oh, Andy should be so embarrassed." I said it was Ari. Her response was, "Oh, that makes more sense." I love this girl.
That's a real listener. They know. Yeah. And you know what? I'm happy to be the guy that does that. I'm happy to be. People get it. Dads get it.
They do.
They get when they get those days.
So I actually think Joe's right about the circular logic. Like if you're going to think Texas, like if you're going to be one of those people that says Texas doesn't have a good win, they're not proven, then you can't give Georgia credit for beating them either.
Yeah, it is always interesting that way. That we perceive Texas to be good, but where they're ranked. But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It counts for Georgia now because the value of a win only is as good as where a team is ranked.
Right.
So for the time being, it's buoying Georgia.
Yeah.
But if Texas were to go get their butts kicked in College Station, they would probably fall to around the 11-12 range and on the bubble. Thus would be a less valuable asset for Georgia to sell to the committee later on. Now, that said, I don't think that teams get penalized ever or all that much when their best win goes down in quality. Like, you don't see a team fall in the polls after a win because the team that was always bolstering up their resume lost, right?
Yeah.
So
Zach in the chat. Texas has a great defense. Yes, they're actually number 1 in the country in yards per play allowed. So yes, they have a very good defense.
Yeah.
So, the other question, which would be more important to Texas A&M fans, beating Texas and missing the playoff or losing to Texas and making the playoff. There's no scenario where they lose to Texas and make the playoff. So that's out. But the beating
what
Texas,
do you think they would rather? Which one do you think they would covet more?
I think they'd want to make the playoff. I don't know. I think it's both. But yes, they can beat them and miss the playoff, because if they lose to Auburn this weekend, they'll miss the playoff, but then they could beat Texas and potentially knock them out too.
I think that beating Texas would be a more valuable thing for them than making the playoff and not advancing to the semifinal. In terms of fan coveted memory.
True. And bragging rights for a year.
If you knew, if
the SEC screws up the schedule,
if you knew going into it how the playoff run would end, like I think that they would take the playoff lottery ticket up front, but if you knew the playoff would end in 1 or 2 games and you would not make the semis, I think they would take the Texas game.
I think you're right about that. This is a really good one from Dylan. I was looking back at an episode from a couple of weeks ago and did my best to try to extend the Mason-Dixon line to Provo. This is when we had Doug Maurice on, and I was trying to get BYU in the South. Provo is further north than the original Mason-Dixon line between Pennsylvania and Maryland, but when the line was extended throughout the 19th century, it ended up running between Missouri and Iowa. The Missouri-Iowa state line is further north than Provo. I would have to guess that if it had continued, Kansas and Colorado would have been above it, so that would have put Provo in the north. If it had extended straight above Kansas and Colorado, Provo would be in the south. So after spending a whole 15 minutes on this, I'm about as clueless as I was before, so it seems the debate can continue on the show. Hope this helps.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something, Dylan. I didn't know there was an original Mason-Dixon line. Like, I didn't even...
I mean, there is a Mason-Dixon line, so there had to be an original one.
I didn't know it changed. I just thought the Mason-Dixon line was just the Mason-Dixon line. I didn't know that they altered where it was on the map. I always just thought it was the line between north and south, and that's where it's always been.
Yeah, as the country expanded west, they expanded it a little bit, but didn't expand it all the way. So we'll never know if
like
Provo is north or south.
More west. Why would they expand up or down?
I think they just expanded it to match state lines as opposed to having part of a state above and part of a state below. Producer River. I feel like Ari just explained the equator.
Guys.
Next on the show, the Prime Meridian. All right, one more, and it's from JT. Two things. Ari, buddy, if I can take my wheelchair out and wheel 4 miles in an hour, 5 to 6 days a week, you can do a 5K. I'm actually rooting for that scenario to happen so that you find out you can actually do it and it won't be a bad time.
It'll be a terrible time. I think I could do it. It's not going to not be a bad time, though.
You're in so much better shape than you think. I think it would be fairly, because you do these high intensity interval workouts that are hard. I know they are. I know I've seen what you do.
After a minute, like it's a terrible minute, but then you can recharge.
Yeah, but you don't
stop with running.
When a steady state run, you don't get to terrible. You just stay steady. So like you wouldn't be feeling terrible. You wouldn't need the rest because you're already in good enough shape. I'm telling the HIIT training will have you ready for this because you're going to lose. Colorado's going to win by more than a touchdown. You are going to do a 5K. I am going to live stream it. That will be our pregame show. But from JT, on a serious note, you've both inspired me over the years. I've been living disabled now for 13 years, in a wheelchair now for 10 years. Long story short, I was in rough shape. I would try to work out, but I saw no real progress, but I felt better, so I kept using my seated elliptical, but I was barely burning anything off. Over the years, I've been listening to you guys at your former employer, and I followed you both of your weight loss journeys. I had a picture of me taken at a Florida baseball game this past spring, and I looked at it and said, who is this person and what happened? So I decided it was time to follow your guys' lead because I said to myself, if those two assholes can do it, so can I. I was in Gainesville this past weekend and I had a picture taken of me and it's night and day. Andy, you turned me on to intermittent fasting. I followed as regularly as possible, maybe missing 5 days over the past 3 months. Ari, I followed your lead and took my manual wheelchair out and started rolling along. Now I can go about 4 miles in an hour. Some days not so good. Some days better than others. I strive to go 5 to 6 days during a week. I work in football, so time is limited. And in the off season, I try to hit 6 to 7 days a week. Thanks, guys. You helped me through COVID, and you're helping me now more than you could ever know. JT, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and hey, keep working. I mean, you're inspiring us. We're not doing anything. Like the fact that you can get out and do this. Like, trust me, when I say I don't want to go to the gym today, or I don't want to think about what I eat today, that will inspire me a lot more than we've inspired you. Yeah. I promise. So,
and congratulations on the weight loss too. I mean, it's not easy. Don't get Slurpees delivered to your house. It's a big detriment.
Exactly.
You know how much weight I gained from Sunday to Monday?
How much?
I was 7 pounds heavier on Monday than I was on Sunday, and I didn't eat that much.
You eat well normally. And when you eat poorly for a day after eating well normally, it's usually there's so much salt that you retain a lot of water.
Yeah, and there's a lot of salt in Domino's cheesy bread. But I wanted to report that I weigh less this morning than I did when I woke up on Sunday, which means that I had a terrible eating day, and then I was able to bounce back and eat clean for 3 days, and then now not only did that not matter, but I'm even a little bit lighter than before. So we're humming.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't be on a show where my face was a beach ball and I was like going next to you who's like lost 100 pounds. Like you're like tiny now.
Well,
So
and that was it for me. So it was 2020, the intermittent fasting part. I don't do intermittent fasting as strictly as I used to anymore, but I still, like most days I do. I'll kind of decide, hey, today's a breakfast day, and then figure out the rest of the day. But for me, we went on a family trip in January of 2020. This is actually before the pandemic. And I looked like Charlie Brown. Like my head looked like Charlie. It was perfectly round. Like it was a winter trip. So I'm in like a big bulky coat. And it looked like there was just a beach ball sitting on top of my body. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be this person anymore. And so if you want to do it, you can. It's frustrating. It's hard. If you want to do it, you can. And there's actually, there's medication now that can help too. Like, don't feel like it's impossible, because it is. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting out, moving. Sometimes it's a matter of this one bag of chips I'm not going to open. Like, you can start it that way and get into it gradually, but you can do it.
Andy, can I ask just one quick diet question?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've never understood this. Because I don't intermittent fast, and I see a bunch of people are talking about intermittent fasting in the chat. If you ate the same things for a 7-day period in scenario A and scenario B, the same total calories, the same foods, the same types of foods, everything's identical. But in scenario A, you only ate those foods in total calories between 12 and 8 or 12 and 7 or whatever the window is. And in scenario B, you ate it whenever you want. After doing that for a month, same in, same out, same workouts, everything else is the same. The only difference is when you eat. Are you going to be lighter in scenario A, or is intermittent fasting just a way to make you not eat more?
I think it's a good way to make you not eat more. At first, you'll probably lose some weight because of the way your body reacts to being in a fasted state. But I will tell you, having done it for about over 4 years now, your body gets used to everything. So if you were eating the same amount of calories, like, you would level off and you just stay at the same weight.
Because like my understanding is that there's so many diet books of South Beach diet and Atkins and all that, and it's just like
there's only 1
calories a day and walk.
I want to make a diet book.
Like, it's not that hard.
This is the diet book I want to make. The greatest diet book in the history of the world. So like your odd number pages are on the right in a book, and your even number pages are on the left. Every even numbered page says eat less. Every odd numbered page says exercise more. And it's like 200 pages of that.
But it should be, and I guess it depends on your height and age and sex. But my diet plan has just been eat 2,000 calories or less a day and walk 10,000 steps. And then I get my workouts in. But like,
right. And you are running, because you're running a deficit. Like, you are running a calorie deficit every single day, and that's why you're losing weight.
And I eat carbs, and I eat potato chips, and but all within the 2,000 calorie window.
There you go. There's a difference.
And Andy and I have gotten after it on the road. Like we went out to
the cinnamon roll at the machine shed.
Yeah, when we were driving through the Midwest, we went to the Cracker Barrel, and I think both of us put down like 30 biscuits between the two of us. So like we are. You can still have days where you're not doing great, but it's just about the consistency. Like I used to just like drink a bunch of regular soda and eat crap for every meal every day.
One thing I found, especially with the exercise, like some people, if you're like me, like I feel like I got to do like a hard workout, like what are these the college players do? Like that's a real workout, and anything less is not enough. One thing, as I've gotten older, I've realized, some days you just need to get out and do something. Go for a long walk. Do some elliptical. Just move a little bit. And then tomorrow, if you have some time and the desire, do the hard workout. But you don't have to every day. Like, everybody's got their own kind of weird mental quirks about this stuff. And so you just gotta forgive yourself sometimes. Because it's never going to be exactly what you want it to be. It's never going to be perfect. The scale's not going to always say what you want it to say. And you just forgive yourself and you keep moving.
And if you are really overweight, like I was over 300 bills when I started, okay? Or 3 bills. walking is really, really good for you. Like it's
It's the
very
best thing.
underrated. Like if you
The
walk,
best thing.
it's not something that kills you. Like I would just go to the mall and walk around in circles with my earbuds in. And maybe I was an 80-year-old Jewish man in Boca Raton, but I did it. And it's just like walking around.
You will be someday, Ari. So it's just
we went on a
look into the
double
future.
date last night, and I brought up the SL 500 to everybody at dinner, and I think Britt wanted to strangle me.
Of course she does. That's okay. It's not going to be your daily driver. Everybody, love your questions. We actually have more of your questions to answer because we are filling in for JD one more day on the hard count. So why don't you join us in 14 minutes on the On3 Sports YouTube channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking a little Julian Lewis. We'll be talking a little Jim Phillips defending the honor of the ACC. Finally. Politicking before it counts. We'll talk about that on the hard count. Otherwise, we'll see you on Saturday.